Welcome everyone to another edition of the Product Diaries with AWH. My name is Lucas Latour and I work in our business development side of the company, also alongside our product development team. And today we are here with the leaders of Hopewell. Brian and Amy, welcome. Do you two just want to talk a little bit about what Hopewell does to start out and what each one of you does for Hopewell?
Thanks for having us on. So Hopewell, we call ourselves a work experience company. And what that means is we're studying work and collecting data to help individuals learn how to navigate more effectively their preferences in their day to get to flow, ability to do even better work in more satisfying ways. And for them to be able to do that, they have to understand their preferences. And then also for the company, they need to understand that in order to be able to help align the investments they make in tools and technology and resources. So at the highest level, that's what we do. We help collect that data and create solutions to help make that more effective work experience. To simplify, you might think of it, imagining work becoming a consumer product. And if work is a consumption, we're helping those who get to participate and build that journey, do it in a more effective way. So for the first time, thinking of work through that consumer lens than it has before. We're here in Columbus, Ohio. We've got folks now starting to fill up around the country on our team, and myself as a co-founder with Amy and CEO, helping set product vision and get the monies in for the company. And that's largely my role.
Gotcha. And Amy, what about you?
Yeah, so I'm the Chief Brand Officer of Hopewell. Right now that means creating all of our messaging, all of our visual assets, and a lot of investor decks.
Yeah.
But also as a co-founder, building the company and helping direct product vision, I have a lot of passion for the UX side of the house. So I usually stick my nose in there as often as I can. And I've been very deeply involved with the product development side for the past several months, which has been really fun. So a little bit of everything, which I think is under every co-founder's role.
Maybe we could talk a little bit about the product. So you have these laboratory locations, and it allows you to continuously study like the space, the amenities, and the technology that makes up great work experiences. How did you sort of come up with this combination and like what is essentially the product?
Yeah, well, I could tell you a very logical linear story that would make it sound like we were prophesizing some beautiful thing, but the reality is that's not how that started. Several years ago, we really had a vision that there was a better place to do work. I mean, in the last couple of companies we've had a version of an office here and there, but never really had the full set of amenities. With a small company, you can only have so much. So, and as we were telling the story about a different type of place to want to work, we came across a guy named Ira Sharfin, who's the CEO and owner of Continental Office Furniture, which is based out of Columbus here. And they're a fairly large regional office furniture company. They do flooring, furniture, all the things that make up that physical experience for companies. And he aligned on our vision that there's a better way to do that, better place to have that done. And specifically, he needed a showroom to be able to set up those live action environments. And so once we did that, we really started just to listen and learn. And we found that really we had a unique opportunity to observe and capture what was happening inside the space. And on the other side of that story, we also heard from Continental's clients who were coming through to see this, and they were saying, hey, this is great. We want to have more of this in our, various office locations. But the weird conflict there was that it's not like they don't have the means or the ability to do that, but they were for some reason not making that decision. And it came clear to us that their lack of data to confirm their gut instinct and ability to align what that investment was going to really do prevented them from making decisions. So the laboratories were, I would say, reframed and reimagined over the last year to think about not just to being a cool place to go work, but actually like what the opportunity behind the scenes for us to build and experiment, validate, test. And it happens that we are able to financially align that with the needs of these office environment dealers. So it was a circular path to get there, but the need continuously emerged as we were listening to people.
Yeah, and maybe touch a little bit on sort of like what the need is, because I think everyone now is, and maybe they have been previously, but even more now, are thinking about the where you work and what the environments are like. Maybe talk a little bit about what that pain point is for companies.
Yeah, specifically on the space needs, I think companies are starting to realize that there is this impossibility to personalize and customize the experience for everyone. There's, just not enough money there and time to be able to do that, whether it's in your physical space, four walls, or the overall just general experience. And so this concept of co-working, you have to really nuance what that means. And in our, I guess, version of that, it's flex space is what the industry calls it. And what that means is, like what you sounds like, it's the ability to flex out of or in and create first, second, and third level spaces. So in our spaces, we serve everyone from the freelancer individual who doesn't need an office, just a place to drop into, a company looking to change it up and get off site and bring a group together. With the impact of COVID, one of the lines we use is, think of the office as a tool, not as the home. And if you do that, then you would want to put as many important tools in your toolbox as possible. And a third space can be often that flexible resource to you. So in our case, we don't specifically offer full-time offices there. You can buy day passes, memberships, one-time use of the space, but and we'll talk a little bit more about the design of the space, and Amy can talk about the lexicon of environments and the modes of work we support. But there's an increasing attention to detail of exactly what those settings are in the space and what we're trying to learn about where that aligns to what kind of work people do. But in the spirit of COVID, I do believe that there has been a massive acceleration of the understanding that everybody can operate in more effectively in different scenarios based on the type of work they do and their preferences. So while I think there's going to be a big shift in commercial real estate, generally speaking, there is opportunities for you to create an array of options for people, whether it's yourself or the company. So for us, it's been painful to obviously slow down the train that was increasing in speed in terms of usability, understanding for us. But at the same time, I do think it's put us in even greater alignment in the future with what people are going to be doing.
And you mentioned, Amy, you're on the product side of things. Maybe tell us a little bit about the spaces, where they are, what kinds of environments you try to create for people, so that we have a real sense of kind of the product that is Hopewell.
Yeah, so right now we currently have a location downtown Columbus on the corner of Chestnut and 4th, right near the Firehouse Museum there. And that's our primary location. We are opening a second location in Louisville, Kentucky in the next few months. But essentially what we determined as we started studying environments and spaces was that there was no unified way to reference a space. You can say conference room, and that can mean 10 different things depending on where you are, or the kind of work you're doing even. So we wanted to get more granular, and we developed a lexicon of environments that lets us understand spaces across different environments. And this is useful when we're working with companies as well, who are not in our physical space necessarily. And we wanted to understand how people use different environments and which modes of work are best suited to different types of environments. Right now, it seems like companies have two primary ways that they frame up environments, and that's either by department or by task type, or a little combination of both. We don't think that's nuanced enough, because the assumption that every designer wants to do their work in the same environment is just kind of a little too blanket level for everyone's preferences. So we are studying which environments people associate with different modes of work. And when we talk about modes of work, it's more a nuance than task, because it's about the headspace that you get into to approach different kinds of work versus the task itself. So we have sort of a shining example of this would be Brian and I are polar opposites in most things, but in email specifically. So Brian needs like extreme energy and focus to tackle email. And so he wants to do that at a certain time of day in a specific environment with quiet, or whatever that might be. And I'm exactly the opposite. When I'm totally burnt out and I don't have anything left, I will reply to 70 emails in a row and I can just knock them out. So that's where task breaks down a little bit. It's more about the mode that you're in when you're trying to approach that kind of work. And then each person has their own set of preferences around environment, amenities, and tools to do that type of work. So that's what we're studying, and that's how we're able to create these controlled experiments in the Hopewell locations, where we can see how people use the different environments.
And one thing on the topic of environments, we just read that Denison University is opening a launch lab at the downtown Hopewell space. What is the launch lab? Could you tell us a little bit more about it, and will there be more things like that?
Yeah, the launch lab is really exciting. Essentially, Denison is creating a next generation way for their students to understand work and the future of work, and to be really prepared to go into the jobs that will exist in the future. Hopewell is one component of the launch lab. It's in collaboration with several other parts of campus and their career centers. And so the launch lab downtown provides a way for Denison students to get connected with startups and other organizations that are really in the heart of the city who are doing future forward work, for internships and for all kinds of different networking opportunities. So we're really excited to host them.
Awesome, and that's a fantastic development, and I think anytime you can encourage that kind of innovation, and it's a great thing for the community. One thing I want to ask you about is you talk about the idea of work experience. What do you think of, and what encompasses work experience, and what does that mean from the mindset of Hopewell?
That is an analysis, in my view, a combination of the customer journey and the preferences that relate to the persona building. So if you're a consumer company, you may be very nuanced in thinking, who do I primarily serve? What is the journey that individual takes in getting to consuming our product? Various stages of that product journey can often be debated, but like in the end, there's some distinct understanding of that. There's a whole lot that goes into this wavy line of that. And it's similar framing for us of work experience. Specifically, what we believe is that there is a distinct set of inputs that make up someone's preferences for their personal ability to reach that peak performance at work. And understanding and knowing that will make up the work experience for that individual that is preferred. And ultimately, in aggregate, for a company to understand that they can say, I have, just like the customer journey, I have a handful of people that are a distinct category that I have to support to get to consuming more work. And not just more, but more effectively doing that. And what you find is that, much as was the old consumer products world and still being refined today, we actually make it pretty hard to get our work done sometimes. And it's not by bad intent, but actually just by bad design. And if you look at a company like Amazon, maybe on the very extreme end, they're operating, to my understanding, 20 plus homepages at any moment based on who that consumer is coming in. And it's there to help you get to what you're trying to discover more easily. And similar with work, if you imagine the idea that my work experience, as Amy described, for that one particular read and reply mode of work is quite different than hers. But if you would have categorized us as maybe product or marketing people, you would have just applied one set of an experience that we would have had there. And by way of that, you might have invested in a specific set of design for the space, for tools and technology. But that's, again, just poor use of data or design, and a lot more gut feel of, and in some cases really just lazy. But work experience to us is all of those inputs that make up someone's individual peak performance.
And it sounds like there's maybe a lack of understanding of that out there in the market. Do you think that companies are thinking about it this way, or is this like a new concept for them that they're still very much adopting?
For most, it's new. I would say, again, like a lot of things that just get named different things, it's probably a collection of individual thoughts or strategic initiatives that have gone on at some point in a company, but never with a single North Star and a way to define that and work towards creating a metric of success around that. So they might have optimized office space to lowest cost, or they might have thought of culture in a certain way, or they might have packaged amenities for the office because, they saw LinkedIn and Silicon Valley has, snacks and beer and buses to work. And so, company X decides then I'm going to do that too, because that they seem to have smart people. And so, they have a bunch of these variety of initiatives, but never have brought them together to help build around that and align. And one unique thing, and I know Amy can talk even more to this point, is there has been no one person that's been dedicated to this inside of a company. Mm-hmm. So by committee, you'll have, maybe a leader, but you'll have a variety of C-suite and leadership team initiatives that talk about things like recruiting and retention and culture and diversity, inclusion, and office. And they all get weirdly commingled, but then no one gets to own the actual work experience part of that. So for companies right now, part of the alignment that we're working with is, how are you going to enable someone to own and learn and be the expert on the work experience? Because they're going to be tethered to the CFO and the COO and the COO no matter what, because there's money tied to this. There's other initiatives that extend off this, but this nobody owns the problem is a major thing that we've been learning about.
And I think with no one owning the problem, it opens the door for a host of point solutions, right? So you think you identify the problem, or you hear something from a survey that you did, and then you go and tackle that little pinpoint piece that maybe is only a pain point for a few people at the company. I think a really interesting differentiator here is to think about how we are different than employee engagement or satisfaction, and how those are really feelings based in a lot of ways. Would you recommend the company? Would you tell your friend to come work here? Do you like your manager? Are you happy? We're a lot more behaviorally focused. So we believe that if you're able to get people to a point where they can successfully do their work with high satisfaction on each of those work sessions or work episodes, get them to flow more often, that's mutually beneficial, right? So it's not just to get more out of the person, but there's a satisfaction metric tied to that for the individual. It's more about the quality and the experience of getting down to work than it is about how you feel about the company.
Yeah, I personally go down to Hopewell, the co-working space downtown, and I really love the space, and I actually feel like I should work there every day. But I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about what else you're currently working on.
Yeah, definitely. So, I think if you want to break our product and vision into short and long term, one of the things about getting deep on an understanding of work preferences that you need to start to collect and understand individuals' work preferences and see if you're beginning to see what elements will be predictive of their ultimate success. So we work with a team member named Sean Wolf, who's a best-in-class consumer experience research design person. And what she's done is helped us understand how to deploy a self-reporting assessment to employees on teams where they get to share all about their personal preferences. And that gives us a line of sight into an organization's overall view of what is it that people in modes of work do they do, what kind of barriers to getting that great work done, what environments do they prefer, and really being able to see if that company has alignment. Are they investing? Are they aligned to creating a really effective work experience? So currently that product is helping shape the data vision on the back end and really have influence. And what the extension of that is, if you think of that as a mainly an enterprise product to give the answer to some burning questions like, how do we get our office realigned now post-COVID to have effective resources? What tools and technology are in the way? What policies are preventing great work from getting done or helping great work get done? It's to then move on to helping the individual worker. So once we have a good understanding of what drives is predictive of great experiences, we can take that technology and turn it into a tool to help individuals remove the pain of planning, remove the pain of the frustration of learning these new behaviors. And so if you think about something like fitness as an example, where there's now a long tail of both options to use the fitness tools, but also to achievements and understanding of the psychological impact of building new behavior, we see that opportunity being similar, where you can envision an app that you wake up in the morning and it suggests to you when's the best time based on your circadian rhythm and your preference of energy for modes of work, where to go, what to do, and how to do that work. Really just pops up on your calendar, and it begins to help reinforce those things you really want to do. So you get to the end of your week and you're not looking back saying, I don't really know if I got anything done, or man, I was running through the mud on that marathon this week and it was super inefficient. It's to get to the individual to the end of the day and say, man, that was great. Like, I got 2 hours of some of the best work I've got done. And what's good and bad, I think, and positive opportunity is that when you talk to people about this new way of work, i.e. meaning creative type of work behind screens, especially, just didn't never design for that. It's a skill and a whole thing that we maybe learned some of it in college of becoming autonomous, but technology can be used to our advantage here, where we can focus on the thing we're good at and not the part of planning, which especially people like me are terrible at, being consistent like that. So we have two visions. It's leveraging building a data infrastructure, helping companies solve short-term issues around how they get these things in long-term, really turning technology and changing the entire way that we think about preparing to do our work.
I mean, you talked a little bit about your long-term vision, but where do you really see this going in the next few years? What's your sort of long-term vision for the product?
It's easiest to do this sort of market of one personal vision of how you would want our tech to help you as an individual, and that helps give it a vision for how it could be effective all overall. But for me, I really struggle with consistently generating these pockets of capacity to do the really hard thinking work that I need to get done, and even sometimes the not thinking work but needs to get done work. And so we imagine that Hopewell has a product that is the de facto, if you want to imagine how easily we integrate things like calendar and email to your life, that ultimately will also have this companion product that is there bringing all these things together for creating these great work sessions. So as me, I want to be a great work athlete, right? I want to be someone that is defining myself as, I'm really good at getting great work done. And what that means is that my work isn't what Hopewell's accomplishing. It's putting myself in a position to succeed at getting those sessions ready. And so for me, I would want the help of a suggestive way of putting me in the right position more often in 1 week. Just to take 2 of those moments, even for me, would be a massive leap forward.
When you think about if you were to wake up in the morning, there'd be sort of an AI assistant that would recommend certain things to your calendar, would understand what you have prioritized for the week and help you arrange it scheduling meetings at better times for your chronotype, also based on the other people involved in the meeting. There's a lot of opportunities to optimize towards individual preferences, as well as things like chronotype, the mode of work that's being done, the environments that are available where you work, all the way down to awesome content opportunities. Here's a playlist that we built to help you get that writing block done. So very suggestive, and takes all of the thinking and planning out of creating great work episodes.
That's a really cool vision. So how do you sort of identify and align environments and experience for peak performance? Like how do you really get down and nitty gritty and identify these?
There's a couple ways that, if you think about a pie of inputs, you've got the physical space, which we mentioned in this lexicon. You've got the modes of work that you mostly get into. And one thing to be clear about all these is that they shift over time, depending on what you're doing, which is another part of the challenge here. You've got a certain circadian, right? There's a different time. There's a lot of science behind that. And we look to experts out there like Rise Science and folks that are doing deep work on sleep and the effect of that, which will affect your energy levels. So that energy input. And there's really an alignment then to your satisfaction. Like, did all that come together and you were satisfied getting your work done? Were you effective getting it done in a good way? And so all of that comes together. And if we use a term that obviously one of your 8OH partners, Ryan Frederick, talks about, which is flow, right? So flow for us is a consumer identified way of where they may feel at peak performance, is they were able to almost lose themselves in their work. And what we know is that all the inputs that go into creating a flow moment are distinct for every individual and each type of work that they do. And so that is how we think about, we can classify all those inputs and we can understand that for every individual. And that ultimately will create the alignment at the individual level, and in aggregate for any organization, it can be shown as to what is the alignment of overall company resources and individuals' experience.
We all try to get to flow states, but I think it's super interesting to have a mechanism in place that helps you get there, because you don't always know how to get to a flow state or what is affecting you in an environment to prevent you from having a flow state.
And it requires a lot of rigor, a lot of personal rigor to track those things. So we do a personal exercise. We do a flow tracking. We have a whole template. And when you join the company, we ask you to track your work episodes over a certain period of time. And we offer this also as a content piece for anyone to try. It takes a lot of discipline and a lot of thought, and it's a pretty complex tracking template. You got to record a lot of different pieces of the puzzle, and it's hard. It's hard to just develop that skill on your own, and it's not something that people learn, and that reflects back on the kind of Launch Lab. I don't know that we do a great job in this country of teaching people how to work in that self-disciplined, driven way. I remember being in school and it being like, okay, don't wait till the last minute to do your paper. And that was it. And other than that, you were flying blind and you sort of just had to figure out how to get whatever it was done. So then you develop those skills over time, or you don't. And it really kind of limits your ability to accomplish great things. So we think it's really, it could be a very helpful thing to help teach people how to approach work in ways that are more successful for their style.
Yeah. And so once you work with the system and you've kind of identified an ideal work experience, what happens after that? Like, what is the company's role? What's the individual's role?
Yeah, and this is a tricky balance out there right now, because historically, and part of the challenge is that you would put the burden mostly on the company in terms of providing the quote experience, and then all the team members would sort of fall in line, and their defined skill, probably fell into two categories: the thing that they're good at doing, and then whether or not they have maximum effort, right? So it's like, are you a hard worker? And then what do you do? And then, hey, by the way, go be successful inside of this thing we've put in front of you. And really, that model was an extension of the Industrial Revolution, where we took the factory floor and we put it in an office and we divided people up. And, technology was a limitation for a time. It's not anymore. So what really here is the next step is that companies have to pick and choose which of these things they're going to have influence over, but really only half the burden falls on them, right? So especially when you think about now a remote work environment, distributed work environment, they have much less of an influence over your physical environment in those cases. So 50% of this is about the self-awareness and understanding of the individual. So as a company, you want your individuals to be self-aware and start to create behaviors that help make a more effective work for them. But on your side of it, then it's how do I invest more specifically to the work experience? And one way that we have seen this be, implemented and successful is that a company we worked with, they did this analysis and found out, I would say, two high-level takeaways. Number one is they were distracting their designers by having certain meetings at certain times a day, and they saw a cluster of people that really wanted to do their high-performance work, like doing production work in the mornings and through those hours, and they were pulling them off that. So they rearranged their day to have non-essential meetings later in the day and create that capacity for that type of work for those individuals. That's a policy thing. That's a zero cost change. And the second would be they rearranged their office. Looking at COVID, people went home. They were fine and effective at home, but they didn't want to lose a central meeting place. So they've realigned those resources to collaboration, presentation, things that have supported sales, and those types of activities, which was a relatively low cost way of deconstructing a couple walls in the office and rearranging furniture. So that's sort of like what happens at a company if they're going to make an effective change right away. And then you got to keep measuring and understanding how that changes.
There's also a really interesting aspect of our partnership with the Herman Miller and office environment firms here, which is the ability to help implement those changes. So if there's a reveal around, hey, our office is not right, it's an open office plan, we don't know how to readdress this, we have design partners who can come in and really tangibly make those changes for and with you. The reveals have been all over the board, though. I mean, it's interesting when you think back about it's no one's job, but there's also not really, the right questions aren't always being asked. If you're thinking about engagement or satisfaction, it misses whole categories. So it's too cold in here all the time. We're all freezing, right? And unless someone's voicing up that complaint to the right person, nothing really gets done about it. So there's lots of interesting reveals, and the action items have been surprisingly clear, especially once you layer in the insight and the understanding of the organizations themselves, the color there that they can provide when they understand the workforce really deeply. It's been awesome to see.
Yeah, and I think knowing that you have these work experiences that are suboptimal, it's just a prompt to continue to innovate within the company on both sides, whether that's teams going up to, leadership and telling them, hey, here's what we're seeing in our environment, or the company kind of taking a top-down look at, okay, here's the overall productivity and where it's not optimized or where it could be optimized. How are you sort of balancing this digital platform with the physical labs? Like, how do you leverage these against each other, and what do you see the relationship between them being?
Your better business self would tell you to get out of being in two distinctly different businesses, because the operation of both of them, while maybe aligned in some back-end data way and some front-end vision, in between that is two different businesses, basically. And the consumer orientation to, Lucas, you coming in and enjoying your time there, most people that come in there could care less about what we're doing on the back end of the business. So what we wouldn't be able to do without is our partnership with office environment companies. So what they do is take the logistical nature of identifying the product and the build out and the understanding of all of that into play and off of ours. So we don't have to own the skill of interior design and all that. We do need to own the skill of operating the space well. And we have to own the skill of being able to see where the data can be collected there. And so for us, the balance is continuing trying to find the intersection of and importance of that data. We may find out in our hypothesis is that by having controlled environments, we can study work and we get exponential return on that data versus waiting around and trying to get that from our customers, because we can't get inside their companies that easily, right? We may find out in some that it's not that important actually, but maybe it serves a better marketing tool for us to be able to show companies that we eat our own dog food and that we invite that in. So we have to keep, I would say a penciled in circle around both businesses and trying to create a more permanent inked line in between them. It's not lost on us. Every day we think about the challenge, we experience it firsthand, but it's also bridging a more retail focused concept where software as a service could have a consumable front end. And if you watch consumer product companies that have emerged in the last decade where they went all digital, then physical experience, it is true that the work experience is something that you often have to go feel and experience yourself. And a lot of times especially our enterprise buyers sit out there and go, I hear what you're saying and I can even see pictures of it. But until I walk in and go, oh yeah, you're right, that is better. That I can see and understand. They don't always get it. So tight wire rope back.
Gotcha. Well, I will say thank you so much, Ryan and Amy, for sharing a bit of your story today and what you're working on product-wise and the long-term vision for Hopewell. For folks that are listening in or watching, what is the best way to reach out to you if they want to work with you and think about optimizing this type of work experience?
Emailing Brian or myself is probably the best way to ignite a conversation right now. It's first name at hopewell.works, and you can always visit the website. We've got inquiry forms and stuff there. LinkedIn's a good spot too. Awesome.
And for anyone looking for product development services or software, if you're working on a data challenge within your company, you can check out AWH at awh.net. Thank you to both of you once more and have a wonderful day.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thanks, guys.